Are you ready to unlock the power within? To let go of fear, embrace vulnerability, and step into a life of alignment and fulfillment? Welcome. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and this is a journey of unbecoming, discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. What does it mean to unbecome? It's about release, surrender, radical acceptance, and so much more. But what can unbecoming do for you? In each episode, I guide you on a journey to overcome self-doubt, set empowering boundaries, and uncover the untapped potential within you. Through honest storytelling, insightful interviews and reflections drawn from my own experience of living with MS, you will find inspiration to face life's hurdles, embrace your authentic self, and thrive. Are you ready to cultivate deeper self-love, experience more joy, and live a life guided by purpose? It all starts now. Welcome to the Journey of Unbecoming, everyone. I'm Valina, your host, and I'm so glad you're tuning in today. I want you to imagine today walking through the most beautiful garden you've ever seen. Every plant has its place. Some flowers bloom boldly in the center, catching all the light. Others grow peacefully in the shade. They're like sturdy trees that have gone through all sorts of storms. And also some other delicate, like annual blooms that they're just there for one season. And here's what strikes you. Nothing is trying to be something it's not. The roses aren't apologizing for their thorns. The oak isn't shrinking to make room for the daisies. Each plant is exactly where it belongs, and it naturally moves on. So I want you to imagine now your life as that garden. Every relationship in it, every person who's touched your story as a living part of that landscape. Some have deep roots that anchor your growth, and others are seasonal visitors who brought beauty for a certain time, but then they completed their cycle. And some might be competing for the same soil, the same light, and the same space you need to grow. And here's what I've learned about growing into who you're meant to be. Not every relationship is designed to last forever. And learning to tell the difference with love and grace might be the one of the most important skills that you'll ever develop. So today we're exploring why rooting deeply to yourself changes everything about how you connect. How to recognize which relationships are seasonal versus which are soul deep ones. The courage to let connections evolve or complete their cycle. And certainly how to cultivate space for the people who celebrate you when you rise and when you shine brightly. So wherever you are right now, like walking, folding your laundry, washing your dishes, take a breath with me and exhale out. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your heart on your chest. And this is our time. Time for truth about the garden of your life, and time to tend what deserves to grow. And let's begin. So, before you can grow meaningful connections with others, you have to tend to the ground beneath it all. And this is your connection with yourself. Over the last couple of years, I found myself struggling with certain friendships that I couldn't quite name. Nothing was overtly wrong, but something felt off. And I noticed that I was always the flexible one, the one that adjusted, the ones that let others shine without even realizing that I was dimming my light in the process. And the spotlight was always seemed to land on them. They wanted me to listen, to hold their space for their stories, but they rarely listened or asked about mine, like my life, my health, my progress. And slowly something started to ache. In those friendships, I couldn't fully express myself, and I began to shrink to fit into a connection that wasn't really mutual. And afterwards, I'd left with that strange emptiness in me, and that I'd left a part of myself behind. During one particular conversation I had with my therapist, I was just trying to make sense of it all. And I said, I don't get it. They haven't done anything wrong, really, but so why do I feel like after every interaction so empty? And she looked at me and asked, when you are with those people, who do you become? And this question hit me really hard because when I was with them, I didn't feel myself. I became more careful, more accommodating. I was working so hard to keep a version of connection alive that didn't even feel like me anymore. And that's when I began to realize that some relationships invite you to expand, but others, without explanation, ask you to shrink. And if you're constantly shrinking to stay connected, it's a sign that this soil might no longer support your growth. And I've been learning to recognize those patterns, and when needed, I've taken my distance. And not out of coldness, but from a place of clarity, of self-respect, like a respect of my energy, of my time, of what I'm no longer willing to abandon within myself. True connection, whether it's with friends or family or community, can only begin when you first honor your own truth. But what does it really mean? Rooting in your truth means knowing your own rhythms, like when you need to rest, when you're ready to grow, honoring your own pace. Like some people, thrive quickly and grow quickly, others take time to grow. Also, trusting your inner cues about what feels nourishing versus what quietly drains you. And definitely refusing to abandon yourself to keep others comfortable or even to keep a friendship alive. Marisa Peer so beautifully reminds us that we come into this world wired for connection. We seek love, we avoid rejection. It's human and it's natural. But the moment we begin trading our authenticity for approval, we lose the very soil that lets us truly thrive. Here is the beauty of unbecoming. When you start anchoring in your essence, you stop chasing hollow connection. You become rooted, magical, grounded, magnetic. Like you begin to draw in the people who don't just tolerate your truth, but they treasure it. The ones who see you for who you really are, who you are becoming, the ones who stay not because you fit in their mold or always make them feel comfortable, but because you've grown into your own beautiful shape. I like to call those people my rocks. They're steady, they're generous, they're present through every season. They don't flinch when I change, when I fall apart, when I pause, or when I blossom. They don't need me to be smaller so they feel secure. They're not there for a performance, they're there for me. So, right now, which relationships in your life feel like nourishment? And which feel like depletion? Where do you feel truly seen, heard, and understood? And where do you find yourself performing? Your body and definitely your spirit already knows the difference. So trust what's telling you. Once you begin to tend your own soil, you start noticing the shift. You start noticing which relationships grow with you and which are no longer with you. Not only really relationships meant to last forever, and that is not failure. In a garden we have annuals. Those vibrant, shortleaf flowers that they light up a season, and then they shed their petals and they complete the circle. And then you have perennials. These are the plants that may go quiet for a while, but whose roots are very deep and they return again and again. And then you have the evergreens, which are steady, grounding presences. They stay through every season. Relationships are no different. A seasonal friendship might look like a colleague who helped you in a chapter at work, and then you paths naturally diverged. Then they come the perennials, where You can go months without speaking, even years, but then you pick up right where you left off. And then you have the evergreens, your rare evergreens, the ones who are simply there. And not because life is easy or you're always available for them or it's convenient, but because you're part, they are, and you are part of your becoming. When I was diagnosed with MS, these categories became crystal clear. And during that time, it became so obvious who was really rooted in my life. Some showed up when I was sick, when I was struggling, and I'll never forget that. But what surprised me even more were the ones who stayed as I began to rise again, to heal, to evolve into a life that looked very different. Not everyone can hold your joy. Not everyone can witness your growth without comparing or stepping back or shrinking, but your evergreens, they're not threatened by your blooming. They're happy when you're happy. You don't need many of them. You just need a few. And when you find that kind of friendship, it's enough to carry you through every season. Naturally, sometimes we try to force annual relationships to become perennials. We stay too long, we overwater them. But worse, they are already complete. And we confuse like longevity with success, as if the longer a relationship lasts, the more meaningful it must be. But what if we honor the beauty of seasonal connections without needing them to last forever? Letting go doesn't mean being cold. It means being honest. It means allowing things to drift without resistance. It means feeling gratitude without clinging, making room for new growth by releasing what's complete. And this is where the deepest peace comes in. Recognizing the form of friendship has taken, either it's annual, perennial, or evergreen, is what brings balance and grace to your heart. It is hard, it's really hard to let go of a friendship you believe that would last for a life, but you have the choice to soften into that change. You can cherish the moments without needing to keep recreating them. You can honor the love that was and choose to move forward. That's how you protect your garden. That's how you make space for what wants to grow next. And that's how you evolve with your life seasons. So now that you've felt into who stayed through your seasons, who's naturally completed their cycle, I want us to turn our attention to the care required to keep your relational garden alive. Belonging isn't passive, and connection, like anything precious, needs tending. You've probably noticed I use garden a lot as a metaphor, and there is a reason for that. Gardens are alive, they shift, they require attention, protection, intention, just like your inner world, just like your relationships. And when I say relational garden, I don't mean collecting people like bouquets. I mean cultivating the quality of presence, of intimacy, of reciprocity that nourishes your growth. Just like a physical garden, your relational garden thrives when you tend to it with care. And I narrowed it down to like 4 major steps. Regular assessment, try doing a monthly friendship audit. Literally like scroll through your contents and genuinely, connect with people that matter to you. Sometimes friendships need more water, like your time, your presence, and other times they need air and space. Like when one of my best friends went through a rough patch of anxiety and depression and needing regular check-ins. But then later, the very same friend started dating someone new, and I basically lost her regular texts for a couple of months, which is totally normal, by the way. Then practice boundary setting. If someone consistently takes up all of the conversational space with their problems and rarely asks about your life, it's okay to limit your availability and just say, I only have 15 minutes to chat today. That protects your mental bandwidth while still showing you care. And let go and learn. Let the lessons of past or shifting relationships become wisdom for the new ones. Cherish those moments, learn from them, and move on. So I want to share this one tool with you today. And honestly, that was a game changer for how I look at my relationships and how I regularly check in on them. A few years ago, during a coaching retreat led by a dear coach friend of mine, we did an exercise called Cultivating My Garden of People. It was very simple, but it gave me so much insight. And here's how it works. And you can try it now or you can do it later today. So you take a piece of paper and you draw 3 concentric circles, like ripples in water. The innermost circle is your most precious center. These are the people closest to your heart. These are the people who've earned the right to witness your most vulnerable moments and your wildest dreams. Who do you invite there to your most private part of your garden? Why are they there? Who do they support who you are today and who you're becoming? Then we have the second circle, which is the middle space. And these are the people you care for and you value and appreciate, but who, may not walk beside you in every season. And this is okay. What does this connection need to feel balanced? Is it evolving or is it fading? And then you have the outer circle, the third one, which includes people that you're connected to, but who may no longer nourish your growth. They may be old friendships or distant family members, or people who once were in a different place in your garden, but no longer fit who you're becoming. So what or who is no longer in alignment with where you're going? What are you holding on to out of guilt, habit, or fear? And how might you release with love, with respect, and with gratitude for what they once were? This is about awareness. This is not about judgment. And most of all, it's about intentional energy. Your time, your heart, and your presence are so important. They deserve to be invested in relationships where growth is mutual, presence is real, and love can root deeply. And this brings us perhaps to the most important part of tending your garden. And here's what I wish someone had told me sooner, but perhaps life taught it to me when I was ready. You can't control who stays in your garden, but you can control who you are in it. The most authentic, the most actually magnetic thing you can do is bloom authentically. Stop trying to be the right plant for every garden. Start being the plant you were born to be, rooted in your unique soil and truth. I once tried to fit so hard to keep the peace, to be what others expected, but it came to a cost, losing myself. But when you blossom authentically, you stop exhausting yourself trying to be what others want. You attract people who love the real you, not your mask. You allow your relationships to grow deep roots in honesty. And it's scary. I know you may worry about losing people or standing alone, but hear me out here. Those who leave when you stop performing were never really loving you. They were loving your performance. And that space they leave behind, it's the ground for real connection. This is where the real work begins, with how you show up, with what you're planting through your presence, your honesty, and your energy. The more honest you are with yourself, the more naturally the right people will find their way to you. Authenticity doesn't repel, it magnetizes. And remember, tending your relationships isn't just about setting boundaries or letting go. It's also about planting, inviting in what you've longed for. Creating space for the relationships you haven't even met yet, those you'll grow within, deepen alongside, and be changed by. So, what would it look like to show up more authentically in your relationships? What's one small way you could let someone see the real you? That's how you begin to grow into your belonging. I want you to hold this vision in your heart. Your relationships aren't measured by how many you have, but by how deeply they nourish your life. The goal isn't to hold the largest garden, but the one where you truly thrive. The people meant to be with you are those who celebrate your growth, who acknowledge your true self, and who stay rooted through life's ups and downs. Those who don't align with your soil, will naturally drift away. And this is part of the balance of your garden. So what new seeds are you ready to plant now? What qualities like kindness, courage, vulnerability, joy do you want to cultivate in your connections? This space is yours to nurture, to protect. You're the gardener, the one who decides what grows, what blooms, and what completes its cycle. The most beautiful spaces are not perfect. They're authentic, they're wild, they're deeply alive. And so is your garden of belonging. So let's have a mantra for today. I belong to myself first, and from that belonging, I attract relationships that celebrate my authentic growth. Let these words settle in your body. Let them become the soil for what you'll choose to cultivate next. So before we close, I want to honor something. This entire journey of unbecoming has been possible because of the evergreens in my own garden. You know who you are. You stayed with me when things got really messy. You celebrated when I rose again. You believed in me then, and you believe in me every day. You never asked me to be smaller or different than who I was becoming. You taught me that the most meaningful relationships aren't the ones where we never change. They're the ones where we're free to grow. So thank you for being my steady ground. And thank you for showing me what it means to love someone through every season of who they become. And thank you, my audience, yes, you, for tending this space with me today. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who helps your garden grow, someone who celebrates your growth and your truth. As always, you can find me on my website, mindhierarchy.com, see the ways I'm working, or come and say hi on Instagram, which is at mindhierarchy. I'm Valina. This is the journey of unbecoming. Until next time, trust your seasons, tend your garden, honor your growth, and keep unbecoming. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and you have been listening to the journey of unbecoming, discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. Tune in every first and third Thursday at 9 Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for a space where you are seen, heard, understood, and deeply supported. Remember, you do not have to find your way back to your heart alone. Each episode invites you to explore what unbecoming means for your mind, body, spirit, and emotions, a transformative process of releasing what no longer serves you. This show is not just about overcoming challenges. It is about celebrating the beauty of letting go and stepping boldly into a life of joy, purpose, and self-confidence. For more information and to connect with me, visit mindhierarchy.com.